everyone, and welcome back to Backlot Banter. My name is Tucker Hazel, and this is my co-host, Tanner Dykstra, who loves to sweat till he stank. Today, we're here to talk about Sinners. It's a new, original movie in theaters, Tanner, and it's apparently going to make money. I mean, this is history. We're watching history be made here. Yes! Oh, but here we are to talk about it. Of course, if you have seen Sinners and want to talk to us about this movie and anything within it, feel free to join our Discord server, which has a link in the description, or you can leave comments with your thoughts in the comments section. Tanner Dykstra, we've seen Sinners. How do you feel about the movie?
Tucker, I feel fucking energized by Sinners, baby. I love Sinners so goddamn much. It's like a bolt of lightning through your body for 2 hours and 20 minutes. It is just executed at the highest level. It takes itself several floors above any other standard horror fare that maybe some people might be inclined to think that this is. But no, it has obviously its high level of directorial execution, but also a lot of interesting, really cool ideas at play that it really delves into. It really gives these ideas, these side stories, a lot of time. So it feels sprawling. I wouldn't say this is a film that necessarily feels focused, but that's also not a bad thing for me.
Sure.
It feels like it has its tendrils in a lot of different character relationships or ideas or commentary about the times and things like that. And then also it's just for like an hour or hour plus. It is a rip-roaring, bloody makeup effects, shooting vampires, stabbing vampires, good time. Oh yeah, spoilers. This film is about vampires.
I'm gonna be honest. So I was watching some reviews last night, and a couple of them were trying to hide it, and I'm like, if you're going to see Sinners, you know it's about vampires. And you're going to see it because you know it's about vampires. Come on. We don't need to hide it.
Yeah, I know.
So we're not hiding it here. And that's fine by me because I love Sinners. I think this is an excellent movie. I think it is easily one of Ryan Coogler's better works, but he's also never made a bad movie, so it's not like that's a giant criticism or a surprise. But the thing that surprised me most about Sinners is that for most of this movie, it's not necessarily what you'd expect it to be. This movie tonally executes on two very different styles and then melds them together in the middle, I think, in a really interesting way, creating a totally unique experience. And it is that first hour and 15 minutes, I believe. I was sort of checking the time just to see when we step into the horror movie aspect of this. And it is over half of the runtime. And I think that is such a great directorial decision because it means that the stakes are upped even more. We have talked about a lot of horror movies on here. We've also watched a lot of horror movies that you see a group of characters get picked off one by one. And you're like, oh, that is the insert stereotype character here, and they died for X reason. That's the jock character, that's the cheerleader character, that's the nerd character, whatever. But the great thing about Sinners is that by the time you get to what you described as the rip-roaring vampire slaying hour of movie, you have spent an over feature length, of course, like over 60 minutes worth of time with these characters, getting to know their histories, getting to know their dynamics, getting to know their personal goals and the struggles that they have and the people that they don't like. And so when they're all crammed into this one location and forced to fight for their lives, everything feels a lot more dramatic, and it makes it work even stronger. And I think that the choice to not have really an opening action sequence, or even, frankly, a middle of the movie action sequence or horror sequence, is something that it takes a lot of restraint. Because I think what Coogler notices here, or recognizes, is that if he creates a compelling group of characters, which I think he actually did, and I think that's actually the strongest part of the movie, is the ensemble cast, if he creates a compelling group of characters, he doesn't need to recapture your attention by being like, "Ooh, something spooky is happening. Here's the action thing." It is literally it's like a period drama for an hour and 15 minutes, and we don't see those a lot, especially not about 1930s rural South.
Yeah, so I think this is the key thing to think about with Sinners is that it is Ryan Coogler's, as many people have called it, Ryan Coogler's blank check. He has done. Yeah. He's done a Creed movie that made a ton of money. He's done 2 Black Panthers. He's made like $2 billion plus from Marvel Studios with these Black Panther movies. And so now the Hollywood system's like, all right, Coogler, what do you want to do? No holds barred. What's the movie you want to make? And he's like, I want to make this. It is it's an action horror thriller, and studios are rubbing their hands together, they're licking their chops. It's like, ooh boy. And he's like, no, listen, it's 2 hours and 20 minutes. You don't see the vampires until an hour and 15 minutes in.
Yeah.
For a majority of the first and second act of this movie, it is a period drama, like you're saying, Tucker, that is about, the that is like at play with themes about like the Al Capone and moonshine
Yeah,
running and gangster stuff
yeah.
going on, but you never see any of that.
No.
That is all in the background of Michael B. Jordan's two characters.
It's really
And
about sharecropping community in the poor black rural South, and it's like, okay, we'll trust you on this one, Ryan.
Yeah, it's about this kid Sammy, as portrayed by Miles Caton. His first movie, by the way. Want to give this kid props.
Absolutely.
He's fucking great in the movie for being his first film role. And about his his thing of like, my dad's a preacher. I want to play the blues. My dad doesn't approve of that, and
he's
so
the main character.
He falls in with these. Exactly, he falls in with Michael B. Jordan's two main characters, and then trouble and fun ensues, I suppose. So yeah, it's great. Let's talk about the two Michael B's and Miles Caton as Sammy here, as the main characters of the movie. The focus can shift between them, but we begin and end with Miles Caton as Sammy. And he's super solid. Like I said, incredible. This is his first role. He has this sort of wide-eyed wonder to him. He has this. He's like roughly teenager, maybe early 20s at the oldest, but excited to go see the world kind of thing, and doesn't want to be restricted by his sharecropping community, his preacher father, and so you feel the wonderment when he's talking to Michael B. Jordan's characters, who I didn't know until the movie started playing. His characters are named Smoke and Stack.
Yes,
incredible.
yes.
Love that. And they're these like cool guys who have seen the world. They fought in World War One. They lived in Chicago and worked for the Irish and Italian mobs. Like, they have seen everything. And his wonderment of them, being placed in his shoes kind of in that narrative, makes Michael B. Jordan's characters, as they need to be, feel really cool, dangerous, exciting, and fun.
Yeah, but also aspirational in some way, because it would be really easy to have Smoke and Stack, the Smoke Stack twins, as they're known, be gangster characters that the community is scared of and not much more. But I think what is interesting about them is that because we're seeing them through the eyes of their cousin, who has known them for a long time and who does look up to them in some way, we also get, as the audience, a look into Miles is the actor, the character Sammy, as Sammy is a young, poor, black kid in this community looking up to his cousins, who are obviously he's related to and he's known for a long time, who have seen great success and are wearing really crisp suits and are leading business decisions. And
the first time you see them it's that shot, I think it's in the trailer, of the two of them leaning up against the car, and they got like the really nice like three-piece suits and everything. You're like, okay, these guys are bringing something different. They have the two different hats that differentiate them. I like it.
And matching ties, of course.
Exactly, of course.
But then Sammy looking up to them, and we get to see sort of what their success means to someone who is obviously from that same community, and then uses them as inspiration to want to move on to the next step of his life. And even by the end, he's sort of absorbed some of their confidence, and he's even pushing back against them a little bit. That, I think, makes everything a lot more nuanced and brings in these interesting themes of criminal success and what that can mean to a community where there's not much other choice to escape the situation they're in. And One thing I really love about this movie is that we are dropped in, and we have no idea who any of these characters are. We have no idea what's going on. And honestly, I feel like it took me a long time to get my footing in who all these characters are, because we're constantly introducing new characters and what their dynamics are and what their history is together. But this movie does a great job with its... what's the word for? I'm just brain farting. What's the word for background information that you're explained in a movie?
Like context, or
no? There's the word. There's the
word exposition.
Exposition, yes. The exposition of the characters is doled out so naturally through conversations, where a character will be like, "Oh, like didn't you do that?" And like it just feels like they're just kind of like clipping back and forth, because also the Smokestack twins have been gone for a long time, and so they not only need to share what they've done with their community, but also then kind of re-catch up with the members of the community about what their histories are, and so then we learn about past loves that they've had, past fights that they've had, past jobs that they've had, and the role that they've served in the community. And so by the end of the movie, you have in this barn 7 or 8 characters, and you know exactly how they all know one another, how they feel about one another, and that was just masterful storytelling to me, is realizing as the movie was going on that I was becoming more attached to these characters because they do a great job at explaining their backstories. Even if we don't see any of it, there's not like flashbacks to this stuff, which would be so easy to do. But we just get to see these actors like talk to one another about what their past is.
It's incorporated into the script. I think is the ultimate point. I mean, and the script is great from that standpoint. It is all that setup stuff that is so enthralling that doesn't feel like chores or homework before you get to the horror stuff like it does in 90% of other horror movies. So yeah, and like that's what we're doing, and it's exciting to see the town and the people and everything like that. That's where you're introduced to some of your side characters that will be staying with for the rest of the film, such as
say side characters, but like everyone has a ton of screen time in this movie.
Yeah, honestly, I love Delroy Lindo as Delta Slim. He's really fun, really great. Obviously, very storied, respected actor like Delroy Lindo, chopping it up, having a little fun as this like blues player, drunkard kind of guy.
He's going full on ham bone.
Exactly. And then
you can make a nice stock out of this guy. He's a full on ham bone.
Then you have like the shopkeeper couple / family, Grace and Bo, who like they're not like you introduce them as like, oh, here comes, I've seen like a western or whatever before, like here comes the gangster rolling into town to the shopkeep, and they're gonna be like, oh geez, whatever you need, sir. And they're like, what the fuck are you doing here, buddy? What the hell? And he's like, they're haggling with him. It's like, okay, the dynamic feels richer and less stereotypical than what you might initially be led to believe, and that's what really makes it work. And then of course you have like your Hailee Steinfelds coming in. You
Mary,
have your
Wunmi Mosaku as Annie.
Yes, she gets a great scene with Smoke, one of Michael B. Jordan characters. And I also want to talk. Actually, fuck it, I'll talk about it now. Who cares?
Whoa.
Since because Tucker, many people have been lamenting the fact that movies nowadays quite sexless, quite chaste in their attitudes. Are they catering towards the more puritanical aspects of younger people for whatever reason? Ryan Coogler says, I ain't doing all that. We're having characters talk about sex. We are having characters have sex on screen, and we're just gonna do it, naturally. We're just gonna do it, casually. Basically, we're gonna do it.
Ain't nothing casual about the way they're doing it.
Well, fair point, Tucker. Fair point.
I don't know what kind of casual sex you're having. I like that.
There's a lot of talk about oral sex in this movie. We see, that scene with Mary. Annie and Smoke. And then
Mary and
then Mary as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, there was just
Sammy and Perline. We get 3 whole dynamics going on here.
I was like, God, it really feels like there were no holds barred here. No studios being like, I don't know, these sex scenes might alienate the audience or whatever. Ryan Coogler's like, no, it is a part of these people's lives, their passion for one another, and their newfound or old flames and stuff like that. It feels all baked in still, and I really like that.
And again, all of this is just texture that continues to build and add dynamics between the characters. So when we're in the heat of the moment, what I think is interesting with this movie is there is a pretty hard shift between this period drama that we're talking about, that is an ensemble drama about the dynamics between these characters in this rural southern town. And then, again, an hour and 15 minutes of the movie, I think the turning point is when Mary kills Stack. Then shit goes off the walls, and we are locked down, and everyone becomes aware of these vampires. All of the extras leave the barn.
And become fodder for the vampire villains.
And then there is a ramp up to the action later chunk of this movie where things become really frantic, and the characters are running around and yelling at one another, and the tension is building, and I think the reason why this movie works as well as it does is because I know every character's name and I know other dynamics and everything. And so when I see someone hand something to someone else, when I see them yell something at someone else, I feel the history and the weight between them in this heightened tension moment. Because if this had been a sequence that had been in the first half of the movie, I think it would have been too overwhelming. Because frankly, I do think that there are some really fast editing choices in the second half of the movie that were like really confusing to me. When Grace says
Horde comes in.
Yeah, when Grace says like, "You come in here, you motherfuckers."
Motherfuckers.
Yeah. And they're like, like 30, 40 vampires are coming in.
Yeah.
I'm like, and I'm seeing people like neck to it and stuff, and I'm like, wait,
Tucker, I had the
dying?
same. I had the same thought. I was like, who are those people?
Yeah,
are they like? Because I was like, you have the main group.
Everyone
survives. Talking about.
Well, everyone survives past that first bit.
Not everyone.
Who dies in that first? Oh well, I guess Grace. But like
Annie, Grace.
No. I know. But like, there's this initial swarm of all of the vampires, and they're jumping on people and blood spraying everywhere, and then we see each of our characters. We see Perlene die. We see see Mary. No, not Mary. Annie die. We see Grace die. We see
full
Slim
spoilers,
die.
By the way, I guess. Yeah.
And I'm like, wait, so who were the ones that like had a bunch of blood splurting out of their neck
to get their neck bitten? I agree.
I don't know about that. Confusing. My point is, through all of this chaos, the tension is built enough and the relationships are built enough to where I'm able to instantly recognize who is who, except for in that one sequence, which makes the dramatic moments when, as we say, like over half of the main cast dies, actually almost all of them die, then there's like real dramatic tension. You get the moment when Grace dies and she's burning alive and stabbing the stake through velvet.
She's killing Bo. Yeah.
And then Annie's death when Smoke has to kill her, like you get these moments where you're like, oh my god, like I know what it means to these characters that they're having to either watch their loved ones and friends die or having to do it themselves, and it's like that is really great emotional storytelling, I think.
Yeah, totally. I mean, if we're talking about the vampire stuff, it fucking rules, man. It fucking rocks. I love the mythos of this movie. That goes past the standard like vampire factoids or whatever, like what kills a vampire, etc., etc. Like when we get introduced to our main trio of the racist clan member vampires or whatever, like the main guy Remick is being chased down by like Choctaw vampire hunters. I was like, that's a fucking movie right there, baby.
Of course.
And I mean and then I love that Annie is sort of she is a sort of a medicine woman for the community. She's in touch with like these more mystical elements that the film is playing with.
Of Southern lore. She calls them initially haints, which I think is interesting.
That's right.
That's a cool term I'm familiar with from Southern mythology. And then. And of course, there's a moment where it's like twist on side, like, no, they're vampires.
No, they're just straight up vampires.
Everything you know about vampires as going into the movie,
that's true.
It's true.
Wooden stakes, garlic, sunlight, it's all there. Silver, we all got it. All right.
And you're right. There is like this really just straight down the line, no holds barred baseline for what the vampires are. But then there is this additional layer of culture and history and music that is tied into what these vampires are.
Yeah, the film opens with this explanation. And it's like, all right, so yes, the vampire mythos, of course. But then also in mythology, there are like these musical oracles that can like reach back through ancestral histories and like commune with the dead and through time and space and everything. And these dark creatures, of course, Remick I think has a line to this effect, is like, I want to talk to like my vampire ancestors. That's why they want Sammy, of course. That's where he really comes into this vampire thing, is that they want him because he is one of these people, one of these like musical oracles that can do this. And Tucker, buddy, this scene when he is performing and like and Coogler visually displays what that means to be like reaching through time through music is perhaps the sequence of the year
So
slash
far,
the
absolutely.
decade,
Yeah, I would say
it,
so.
it is it is fucking incredible. Like as soon as we start pulling out like the guy, the guy playing like a little a small little guitar, some sort of like African traditional instrument. You're like, okay, that's neat. And then like the modern, like you see people in like modern clothes from the 80s, 90s, 2000s, whatever. They're also like
Yeah,
integrated into this crowd that is dancing along to Sammy's music, and the music in the film is like being infused with modern influences and sounds and 808s and everything like that. You're like, holy fucking shit, Coogler is
yeah.
cooking on another level
Yeah,
right now. It's
it
incredible.
it
It's beyond words for me.
it's the moment where the movie locks in. To that
Yeah.
point, I was enjoying the performances. I was enjoying the, again, very rare tone of this first half of this movie, which is just a straight down the line gangster Western drama. Again, we don't see very many of those in theaters. And I was like, all right, this is pretty cool, but I don't really get the holy shit Ryan Coogler fucking went off the rails with this one. And then I'm like, okay, you're seeing all the people mix in. I'm like, oh, that's a cool visual. But especially as the scene starts, you don't know how far it's going to go. So I'm like, oh, okay, it's going to be one or two things, and then it's going to fade back in, and like, okay, that's what it was. But then as it starts building more and more, and the music starts, getting all these different layers, and then really what makes it go crazy style is when the walls start to burn, the roof starts to burn, and you've got ash and embers and flames like swirling around these people. And then we see this thing of like, he burned the house down with his music, and everyone's still dancing. But we see them in the ruins of this dilapidated, burned down. It's not a barn; it's a lumber
Sawmill.
Yeah. And I'm like, there you go. That's the image. That's the image right there. Is people from all across time and culture sharing in their love for music and the way that unites a community, even within the dilapidated ruins of a building. I think that's a really, really powerful image.
It's incredible, and it's like I mean, I also briefly want to shout out like they integrate even like a traditional Chinese performance into that with like with everything, because that's where Bo and Grace, right? That's her name. Bo and Grace. That's their thing, and so like they're also part of this community, so they're also represented in that in this like reality bending sequence. It's fucking awesome, dude. I love that. It's incredible. I really haven't stopped thinking about it.
Absolutely.
And how crazy it is that it's in this $150 million Warner Brothers blockbuster movie.
Yeah, 'cause it's just crazy experimental. I mean, it's almost a one shot. There's just all these sort of interesting uses of special effects, and again, all these different costumings and things that make it feel surreal. Which I think is why it took me a second to sort of ease myself into what the movie was going for in that moment. And it wasn't until it kept building up that I really felt the emotional impact of it. I was kind of confused at first, and I'm like,
sure,
all right, this is odd, but again, it ended up working by the end of that sequence. And that surreal twisting point is when the movie again flips on its head, and shortly after that, Mary kills Stack, and then the vampire elements start. And then also that completely changes the music style of the movie once we're shifted into that second sequence.
Dude, when when Goranson, he's like, oh, Southern Gothic? Yeah, for sure, I got you. Like, for 55% of the movie, gotcha. We're doing some blues-inspired stuff.
Yeah.
We're layering in some blues needle drops, 100%. Got it. Vampire stuff happens. He's like, all right, so what if I just, like, actually put, like, a fucking pipe organ, like, Nosferatu-style pipe organ into this shit?
Yeah,
like,
and
really
like
put
rock.
the Gothic in Southern Gothic. And it rules. The music, aside from that sequence that we just mentioned, also is off the chain.
Yeah,
in this
it's excellent.
movie. The performances and the score from Goranson are like 11 out of 10 exciting stuff.
Yeah, and it makes you think more about the music because, again, thematically, this movie is about music. And one thing I think is interesting, again, we're talking about how these musical oracles can unite the community and have this power to reach through the line of the living and the dead or something like that. That part I'm a little bit unsure on. Like, is that what causes the vampires to appear?
Yeah, it's just like raising a beacon of like mysticism, I guess. Is that like things are drawn to it. Your spirits, I think, generally are just drawn to this thing that is happening. Yeah. Which is kind of what draws the vampires in. And again, like Remick has that line. He's like, I want you to help me talk to my vampire ancestors or whatever.
Yeah,
But yeah.
but also the music extends further because it's also something that the vampires are like. That's part of their identity is that
Yes,
they
it
are
is.
constantly doing performances, and it builds up to once they've have a massive horde of them. This like really ominous, all singing in unison thing that makes you
Yeah.
think about the parallels between the different in this style, the different kinds of communities that are doing these
Yes.
performances,
Yes.
but
Thank you.
where Sammy's performance is a blending of many different styles and eras and cultures and people.
Hmm.
There is only one voice being sung and only one style being
Hmm.
sung in the voice of the vampires and their thing. And I'm not exactly sure where this movie lands thematically on this, but the
Yeah.
vampires' whole deal is it's like peace and love, brother. It's Richard Nixon,
It's
and I'm like,
Tucker.
ooh, so what does this mean?
Tucker, this is the fucking 11 out of 10 grand slam shit that Ryan Coogler puts into
Okay,
this
cool. Yeah,
movie.
yeah,
Uh, is this like, is this idea of like the ominous undertones of what it means to be like a melting pot
yeah, sure.
community? But there's a lot of talk about different communities, the racialization of communities here.
Yeah,
Is a conversation that comes relatively late in the movie, but I think it's Smoke is talking to Sammy about like down in the Mississippi Delta somewhere, there's a community that's
yeah,
all black people, and they have a black mayor, but they kicked us out because they didn't want the trouble or whatever. Like, there's talk about these communities, and the vampires led by this Irish guy, Remick, Jack O'Connell is the actor.
hmm,
He comes in and he's like, "No, listen, man, I get it. The people here, they hate you. They're gonna kill you. I have their memories. These Ku Klux Klan guys are gonna come here in the
yeah,
morning and
yeah,
murder you all. Like, that's what is promised to you in this place. If you join us, we can take over the world, make it, a one people, one big happy
yeah,
family
yeah,
sort of thing. But what that does, of course, is the assimilation of the vampire mythos, of course. But also like points to the sinister thing of like your culture, the things that are unique to you will be erased
yeah,
in the name of safety, being one big happy
yeah,
family. Isn't that what we all want? Is to just be with one another and don't worry about it.
yeah.
Like it is this sinister promise that is with the melting pot thing that is like, as this film has its finger very much on the pulse of like African American culture, is like Ryan Coogler's pointing to like, yeah, America is a melting pot for as much as we want to talk about it, but how much of that includes erasing African
Yeah.
American
Hmm.
culture and assimilating it and not respecting the roots and the ancestors from which it came.
Yeah. And then there's also the other side of that coin, which is, yeah, it's a sinister promise or a sinister thing, but it's also an appealing promise to certain people.
Hmm.
And so the idea then that the characters who do end up dying and becoming vampires, especially Mary and Smoke, do seem to get something from it. It does obviously extend their
Hmm.
lives as we see them near the end of the movie once Sammy is older. But then
Hmm.
there's this interesting dynamic that is introduced like right before shit goes completely haywire, where the main vampire talks about how this is an alternative. It's a deal with the devil, but an alternative to the racism of the Ku Klux Klan. And so
Yep.
there's this like these people are already living in this really tense and oppressive society,
Hmm.
and this is literally a deal with the devil in terms of the
Hmm.
vampires. But there is a means of escape, and is that which one is a better solution, right?
Yeah.
Of being able to unify while losing your own sense of identity, or maintaining your identity while staying in this oppressive culture. I think it's a really fascinating interplay
Yeah.
because it obviously the vampires are the bad guys. They are the ones slaughtering everyone and everything. But
Hmm.
it is painted in such this like weird, uncomfortable light where like they are one big family, and they are like, hey, welcome in, like welcome to the family. It's like, oh, this
Hmm.
is like this isn't. It's not like straight down the line. Like these are the spooky bad guys. Like they have their own elements, and as you mentioned with Jack O'Connell's
Hmm.
character. His goal, just as the rest of the characters, is to also connect to his ancestors and be freed
Hmm.
from this mortal coil or whatever. And so it's like there are these really fascinating parallels that I think paint this film in a more of a gray area and a much more
Yeah.
complicated gray area than
There
just
are
black
there's
and white.
there's layers and textures to those vampires. I think you're right, Tucker. But then at the end of the day, there is like the thing of like fucking Hailee Steinfeld like, we're gonna kill every last one.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
it's
yeah.
like, all right, well that doesn't sound great.
Yeah.
She needs some vampire PR training, I think.
Well, hey, it's her first minute.
That's true.
Yeah,
That's
whatever.
fair. That's fair. hmm no, Tucker, this movie fucking rules, dude. I love it. I love it. You talked about, the flash forward sequence to the 1990s, which
Mhm.
is awesome. I love that. That Sammy gets to like talk with Mary and Stack again.
Mhm.
Um,
Okay,
and
Stack. I think I said
then
smoke earlier. I
yeah,
apologize. I'm sorry, guys.
whatever. It's all
Now
good.
I have to
It's all
say,
good.
that was really tough for me. Is remembering which one was which
Oh,
and
sure,
who
sure.
had history with who.
Yeah.
Eventually, I was able to kind of repiece in like, okay, so Smoke was the one. No, Stack. Wait, Stack was the one with Sammy.
Smoke is with Annie. Oh, Smoke. Yeah, Smoke is the one that's like
Yes.
basically always with Sammy, because that's the one that he has to like, really build the connection with for the end of the movie. And then Stack is the one that's always with
Yeah.
Mary, basically.
Yeah, and Stack becomes a vampire, and
Yes.
Smoke actually dies.
Actually dies.
Okay,
Yeah,
alright.
he gets because then you get the Ryan Coogler's like, I know what we all want from this movie. Here's fucking Michael B. Jordan killing KKK members with a Tommy gun. Here it is. He was like, yeah, it's, you know what, the vampire stuff is over, but we still have to defeat this evil in the community too. So here it is.
Yeah, yeah. So but yeah, what's something that I had to definitely get used to. I'm 90% sure I have it very set now.
Right.
But yeah, I just want to shout out no weak link in the cast here. I think everyone is really, really nailing it. I was really especially impressed by Wunmi Mosaku, who I've only seen as a supporting character in Loki. She was given a lot of screen time here, a lot of powerful moments. She's a very commanding character in an interesting way.
She's the one who has maybe the toughest material to do, like, hey guys, this is vampires, by the way. Here's the thing about vampires. Like, that is the thing that's maybe going to take the most people out of this movie, is just straight up, like, garlic, wooden stakes, etc., etc. But, like, again, she takes that all in stride. It's still good.
Absolutely, yeah. And another performance I was really impressed by is Perline, Jamie Lawson, who is certainly the one that is less intertwined with the rest of the larger supporting cast, but she feels so genuine. She because we don't learn the least about her, she's the character with the least baggage, but I love her dynamic with Sammy, and I like, when she gets a chance to sing and sort of command the situation. Didn't even know she was in this movie, but totally surprised and impressed by her performance.
I love Sammy's performance, but when she gets on stage and like when she's singing and everything like that, I was like,
why is the house not burning down again?
Yeah, I was like, this song fucking rocks, dude.
Yeah.
And also, if we want to if we would briefly touch on, I don't know if Coogler has any sequel ideas for this, but we don't ever explicitly see Perline get like staked in the heart or anything like that.
She burns,
or she probably she burns up. Or does she? Like, what do we see her burn up?
Yeah, because she's in the crowd that is watching them at like the lakeside or whatever, and she's like crawling away, and as she's burning, there's like a shot of her face.
I see. Okay, sounds.
And what's interesting is that all those vampires, there's like, I don't know, there's like 40 of them at this point. They all burn because the sun comes up. Which, number one, come on, like, this is the one thing where like, okay, these vampires are usually pretty smart.
It's their first night being vampires.
Yeah, no, but even like Jack O'Connell, he's standing there, and I'm like, you've been vampire for I don't know how long. Or I guess no, it's only been like a day at that point. But
yeah. Well, no, he's like the guy that shows up at the house, right?
He is, but
yeah,
it's a newer thing for him. I'm pretty sure.
Is it? I don't know. It's that's also kind of unclear, because he's being like hunted down again, like by these Choctaw vampire hunters.
Yeah, I guess it's unclear. But so, anyway, I'm a little bit like not sold on all of the vampires just standing there and burning, because to that point they are very strategic. They are like, they understand the situation they're in very well. And obviously to that point there have been some that have survived a long time by avoiding the sun, and so then they all just stand there and die. I'm like,
I don't know. I think some of them are kind of dumb though, because first of all they just like full on charge at everyone. Like they take that for granted, I think. And then also there's a lot of them, and I love this being like a recurring element of the movie, is this really weird vampire mythos thing of like they need to be
Yeah, I
invited into
love how hard they
buildings.
lean into it. I love
They
that.
super lean into it. I love it so much because they're just like, hey, why don't you go ahead and invite me in? And he's like, why are you asking to
Yeah.
be invited in?
And
And
again,
it's
this
like,
this endears us greater to the characters because for the
yeah.
most part, they don't fall for it. They're like, no, that is weird. Why are you saying it
Mhm.
like that?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And then of course, at the moment they're like, no, I just want peace and love. They're like, that's weird.
All right.
Uh-uh.
That's all right, buddy. Why don't you take a big step back?
Yeah.
All right.
And there's also
Um,
that awesome moment, which again plays with like that threshold being invited in thing when Smoke reaches his hand across the
yeah, yeah,
threshold and Cornbread goes and like oh shit oh god.
yeah.
Uh,
Shout out Cornbread. I recognize that guy from my youth being on CSI Miami. I
oh.
loved CSI Miami when I was a young boy, and I was like, that's the tech guy from CSI Miami. But no, it also reminded me of the passage of time because he's got like gray hair now. I was like,
Yeah.
damn, he was like probably like in his 30s when I saw that, and now he's like an old man, kind
Mhm.
of. So
He's
anyway,
46.
Tucker, he's 40. Well, maybe he was even younger than that. I don't know, but he has this like kind of babyish kind of
Yeah.
face that I was like, oh, I always looked at him even in this movie. He's like, oh, he's like a young man, but no, he's got like gray hair and stuff. Tucker, fuck it, 9.2 out of 10 for Sinners.
9.2. Okay, I'll go 9.0 out of 10. Just sick. Just great. Just like great
Cool
characters.
as hell.
A world you're compelled by because even though it leans into tropes, it does put its own spin on it. And I think Coogler's maybe best work, and I think
I think so too.
directorially, I think it has the most to
It's
say and obviously feels most original because he's been
Yeah,
working
that's
in
what is
IP.
elevating it for me because like I love Creed,
Yeah, oh,
2015's
absolutely.
Creed. I think that
And
I
the
think
Black Panther movies are both great.
exactly. I think up until now, Creed was my favorite of his movies.
Yeah,
But no, it's really like the underlying stuff that we talked about a little bit ago, like the as I said, the 11 out of 10 Grand Slam stuff that
totally.
Coogler's putting in. That's like I think it's his best. Like I
Mhm.
think it's incredible that he got that into this movie as well. So, yeah, go fucking see Sinners.
Come on, you jackasses. Come on.
Come on now.